Everything makes you upset. You're fragile. You wonder if you can run a business while feeling sensitive towards others, especially on social media. I've seen this topic a lot, specifically with helping healthcare practitioners. I've helped over 1,000 healthcare practitioners start and grow their business using social media marketing to promote their products and services. And I've seen time and time again that practitioners let emotions take the best of them. So in today's video, I want to talk about mistakes that you can be aware of and prevent as a business owner to better manage your emotions while using social media marketing to promote your business. So maybe you're wondering, how can emotions even affect business? Maybe you haven't even thought about this. Emotions have an effect on everything, from customer service to brand perception to teamwork to employee turnover to managing relationships with contractors. Plus, the brain's emotional state affects decision-making, planning, negotiation, and creative thinking. Think about how you schedule your day. It's based on emotions. You wake up early, maybe because you have more energy to work on writing, or you go to bed later because you feel like staying up and watching more TV. So if you think about it, whether we range on the scale of highly emotional or not, as human beings, we use emotions to run our day. The topic at hand is how to understand and identify and better work with our emotions. The best tip that I've ever heard from my mentors is to find ways to self-regulate. Now, I've taken courses on this. I've put myself in leadership positions where this is really important. Maybe somebody has pushed your buttons and you feel irritated. Or maybe you just feel sad and you need to know how to identify and work with those feelings to then continue with your day. I remember years ago, I was upset publicly. A good friend of mine was putting me down and they didn't understand my efforts with social media marketing and how I was growing my business, Dietitian Boss, which I've grown to over $1 million in annual revenues. And at the time, I hadn't yet reached all the success markers. I was earlier on in my journey. And I remember this particular friend of mine put me down publicly, was unsupportive and quite cruel, and it hurt my feelings. And I remember thinking to myself, at that time, I wasn't as good with self-regulation as I am now, meaning identifying and controlling the situation and learning compartmentalization, but I remember feeling hurt and feeling like that person didn't confide in me, didn't trust me, wasn't able to, communicate in a way that made me still feel uplifted while being honest. And that's an example, if you can think in your life when there's been a situation that's happened with you. Maybe you've been triggered, and how have you been able to identify those situations and work past them? Because those situations are going to happen, and they might happen when you least expect it. But what's important is that you're able to control and be aware of how you interact and engage with people when you're feeling triggered. So you might be wondering, can you run a business and use social media marketing as a highly emotional person? Well, I'm here to tell you that your business and social media marketing efforts cannot be controlled 100% by your emotions. You're going to find a way to balance logic and emotion. Now, you might be higher on the spectrum of emotional than logic, but I don't believe it's possible to run a business purely on your gut or emotions. Now, don't get me wrong, emotions play a huge role in business. After all, people don't buy based on logic. They buy based on their emotional feelings. But you're going to have to find a way to work these two together on different ends of the spectrum, meaning what's logical based on numbers and analytic, and what your gut is telling you, meaning how you feel. Being overly emotional can kill your business. And I've seen this happen. And it's sad, really. So let me give you some context. If you have an idea, and let's say you want to help people in a certain way that you position your business, but you're learning that nobody really cares about what you think they care about, and you won't stop positioning yourself in this way that nobody understands, nobody can connect with, you're not making any sales, and it's been years. Now, that is an example of somebody who's emotional. They're invested into their idea, but nobody else has bought into it yet. That's an example of somebody who's letting their emotions override logic. Now, the logic is if you're not making sales, something isn't working. And it could be the way you're positioning yourself. It could be a multitude of factors, but more often than not, if your message isn't clear and you're not positioning yourself well as solving one major problem for one type of person with one specific solution, then you probably need to focus on that. Also, if you're hung up on bad client experience and if it's holding you back, if you get feedback and it's crippling and you're not able to function and you can't move forward, and perhaps that feedback that you got from, let's say, one person or a small group of people is preventing you from continuing or moving forward, that's an example of you letting emotions override. Because I'm here to tell you, as a business owner, you're always going to get negative feedback. Now, you want to manage what percentage of the feedback is negative, and you want to learn how to make changes in your business. But overall, you're always going to have negative feedback to some extent. So if you're letting a small percentage of what is not urgent in your business dominate your decisions, then you're probably operating from a highly emotional standpoint. So you're going to need to practice setting some time aside and thinking about what is urgent, how do you prioritize, and how to make decisions that are based more well-rounded on logic and emotion. I will say, if you have crippling anxiety and trauma and you haven't been able to work through that and that's impacting your business and business decisions, I would highly suggest therapy. It's a great solution if you're not able to process your emotions and if they're impacting your business decisions. So now's the tactical part. How do you manage your emotions when it comes to business, specifically social media marketing? Because we know there's a lot of there's a lot of controversy about social media being negative and social media feeding into comparisonitis and social media taking too much of our times and us being glued to our screen. So I want to address that. The best way to manage your emotions is to learn how to practice compartmentalization. Now, it's not always easy, but this is a habit that you can build, and learn self-regulation, which is one of the aspects, one of the pillars of emotional intelligence. Now, any leader, any business owner that is able to grow and scale has to fine-tune and refine their level of emotional intelligence. And this is a perfect example. So if you hear bad news or something negative, the question is, how do you handle that? How does that fit into your day and into your week? How does that news impact the rest of your decision-making abilities for that duration of time? And the more that you're able to practice compartmentalization, the better. And for me, what's helped practice compartmentalization would be creating a time management routine. So creating schedules. For example, checking in admin work certain time of the day, taking lunch breaks certain times of the day, checking in with the team, having team meetings certain portions of the week. I theme my days and my weeks, and I even have special projects that I front load at the top of each quarter of the year. And so these practices help get a routine in order to compartmentalize certain areas of the business. Another big help, and this might sound not so obvious with compartmentalization, but it would be using project management tools. So I resisted fully adopting a project management system for a while for various reasons in my business. But when our entire team got on the same page and had management and checks and balances in place, using a project management system really helped me be focused on the business during business hours, not worried about business outside of business hours. And so if you're looking to practice compartmentalization, getting organized is a great way to do so. So that means digital organization systems, like having a tool to manage your task list, your items, recurring tasks, projects, breaking down times, etc., and accountability. Now, if that sounds like too much for you right now, you can start with a simple Excel sheet. But the concept is that you have some type of a system, whether you're using Excel sheet or project management system, to organize and manage the thoughts and projects and recurring tasks in the business to drive you forward. And for me, that's helped tremendously for my brain and staying focused and having all of my thoughts in our project management system related to the business. Now, a more obvious tip would be to practice relaxation tactics. Now, I show this all the time on social media. I'm a big fan of spa days. I love going to the spa. I do it every week. I take my husband sometimes. I go with my friends. I go by myself. And the idea, whether you're at home practicing self-care or you have a routine like hiking or going to the spa, the concept is finding a way to incorporate fun and relaxation time so that you are able to let your brain rest. Knowing your triggers is important. I mentioned that story earlier about a friend who was not supportive, but really put me down when I was growing my business in my earlier stages. And at the time it upset me. I'd handle it a lot differently now, but I felt really hurt. And so think to yourself, what triggers you? A lot of our clients get very triggered by bullies and negative feedback on Instagram. And so you have to think to yourself, what is a trigger and how can you better manage that? And if you create some checks and balances or even practice time management tactics, like you're only going to respond to certain things at certain times, That can help a lot when it comes to managing those triggers. Be respectful. You don't know what other people are going through. Recently, I had a networking call with somebody who just didn't show up, and it was very out of character. I've known this person for a long time, and I could find myself easily feeling triggered, right? Like, oh gosh, I'm not respectful of my time. And I took a breath and I said to myself, let me step back and practice respect. I don't know where this person's coming from. I don't know if something's wrong. I had this kind of feeling because this was out of character of this person. So that person apologized and said it was a mistake. They had a lot going on. They actually had an emergency, right? And so instead, of course, it's not appropriate for me to lash out when somebody doesn't show up, although I don't like when a networking call doesn't show up on my schedule without even emailing me or anything. But I practiced that patience and coming from a place of understanding and respect. And I learned that that person was actually very apologetic because an emergency happened. So again, you're going to have to practice figuring out how to be respectful, but still keep your boundaries, right? So finding that sweet spot between rigidity and porousness when it comes to having boundaries and really upholding your own boundaries. And in line with the last thing I mentioned about the story from last week when someone just no-showed a networking call, it's important to practice compassion because we really don't know where other people are coming from. We don't know the losses they're experiencing, the trauma and the sadness that they have in their lives. So coming from a place where we're first thinking about being kind can help, even if we're feeling triggered or frustrated. So that can take a moment to take a deep breath and be patient. And that's hard for me sometimes because I'm such a fast mover. But the more I can step back and practice compassion in a situation before I make judgments, I actually become a better leader, a better business owner, and a better compartmentalizer of my own emotions. It's taken work. Didn't happen overnight. But because I'm conscious of it, I'm actually more productive in my business and I'm a better leader for my staff and for my clients. If you like this video, I want you to watch this next video on screen about mistakes business owners make while using social media marketing to grow your business.